Hey everyone, I'm David Arant, and today I wanted to take you around the farm and just show you how we manage our rice fields at this stage of the growing process. This is a rice field that was planted the 1st of April. You can see we have water on it, and water is about 1.5 to 2 inches deep, and this is a zero grade field, meaning it's perfectly flat, and that helps us manage water really easily. You can see this rice is about a foot and a half tall, and it's been growing for over a month now. But the rice will have water on it like this all the way until it gets to till about waist high, which is end of July, 1st of August. This trench right here, this is just a little ditch we cut in the fields. Since the field's perfectly flat, we have to have these ditches in the field to help it drain when we take the water off. This is another one of our rice fields, and this is how we manage the water in the fields. You see, we have these boards in the pipe that as the water level goes up and down, the boards help to make it stable. And so if we get a big rain, the water will flow over the boards to let water off the field so we don't have too much water in the field, and we also don't wash our turn roads away.
When you go to pull boards or put them in, do you ever have any surprises?
Yeah, you always have to be looking for snakes. They like to get under this plastic. The plastic helps the boards not to leak. We put the plastic in front of the boards, but the snakes and everything, they like to get underneath the plastic. And so when you pull it up, you're always got your shovel in your hand, just looking, just because you just never know what you're going to find.
Where's your shovel right now?
In the truck. In this field, we have noticed a lot of bullfrogs, and I'll show you some pictures of those in just a little bit. We tried to get a video of them jumping in the water and that kind of stuff. They're just really so fast when you drive up. Couldn't quite do it. But just big old bullfrogs, and that's kind of one of the neat things about the rice fields. Y'all see all kinds of wildlife. Get him back.
Oh.
In addition to the frogs, when you have all the frogs, you also have a bunch of birds, like fish-eating birds or frog-eating birds, like herons and stuff like that. There's nothing on the field right now, but they were here before we drove up, and they just like the abundance of wildlife that's out here. Right here is where we irrigate how we irrigate our rice fields. You can see water's coming up out of that hydrant. It's being pumped out of the ground by a power unit, by a motor, lifts it up out of the ground and puts it on the fields. We also have a lot of relift pumps where we pump out of ditches and stuff like that help to help reuse the water. Any water that's lost from the fields, we can pick it back up and put it back on these fields for irrigation purposes. This is a drainage ditch on our farm that all the runoff from either rainfall or other irrigation events goes into the ditch, and from here we can pick it back up. We use that power unit that drives a pump. The pump sucks the water out of the ditch, and we put it back on the rice fields or corn or soybean fields. And water is just a very valuable resource. If we don't have water, we can't grow a crop. So we do as much as possible to try to conserve that water. You look, you might be able to see there's a lot of turtles in the water, and having these water structures that hold a lot more water than normal, the turtles like to get in there, and it's just kind of a good habitat for them. Conservation is just a very important, it's kind of almost like a family legacy in a way. My grandfather and my dad, they started putting relift pumps in the ditches to help conserve water, to try to reuse that water, because water's it's not an infinite resource on the farm anyway, and so we want to conserve it and just do our best to be good stewards of the land. This is the Case Combine, a Case 7240 machine. It's about two to 3 years old. Pretty big machine. It weighs about 20,000 pounds. These are tracks on the front of the machine, and the tracks help it to float on the mud surface so that it doesn't really sink down very much. Helps to prevent ruts. This is the header. This header can be removed, and you can put on different style headers for corn, and we use this header for soybeans and rice. This thing right here is called the reel. It spins around and it draws the crop into the machine or onto the header. This is called the Sickle Bar, and you see these blades. These blades go back and forth, and that's what cuts the stalk, either the rice or the beans. That's what cuts the stalk off, and the crop then falls on this belt, this rubber belt right here, and that belt draws it to the center of the machine. Once it gets it to the center, that reel right there takes it up into the throat of the combine. This is the throat of the machine. The header gathers the crop into the center of itself, and then the crop flows through here into the machine where it begins a threshing operation. And just for showing you, this black part is the header, and this is detachable from the red, which is part of the combine. Here we can put a corn header on, or this is a draper header for beans and rice. All right, here we're on the side of the machine, and I've removed the doors on the side of the combine where you can see inside the threshing operation. This is the, what you call the rotor, is inside that red cage. And that, inside the rotor, see those big teeth inside there? Those are what actually thresh the grain, and the grain falls through these little bars. The grain falls through the bars right there, and it goes onto the sifter table. And what that does is it shakes back and forth, such like that, where the straw stays on top of these teeth right here, but then the grain will fall through those little sieves, and the grain is separated. That's how the grain is separated from the straw. The straw works its way back into the machine, whereas the grain falls through, and the grain is put into a tank up top where it's stored for until we dump the machine. All right, I showed you the sifter table that allows the grain to fall out and the straw to work its way back to the machine. So what happens then is that these little things, they throw the straw. Once the straw falls down through here, and it throws the straw out over the field. And that straw is, we don't burn our straw. We work that straw back into the ground, whether by disking or just let it sit on top of the ground. And you know, natural processes occur with decomposition and that kind of stuff. Now we're going to go up top to show you what the grain tank looks like and how big it is, and that's where all the clean grain is stored. All right, we're climbing up on top of the machine. That's your engine right there. That's in the back of the machine. Coming on up, and then this is the grain tank or grain hopper. This thing holds about 350 bushels or so, maybe a little bit more, and that's about 16,000 pounds of rice. So that's a lot of weight on this machine, and that's another reason to have the tracks, because with that much weight on the machine, those tires, if you had tires, they'll really cut down in the mud, whereas the tracks help make your machine kind of float across the top of the ground. Just to give you some perspective on how tall this machine is, this is the top of the shed, and I'm standing over the roof, looking out over the roof. These hopper doors, we actually have to fold them down so it'll fit underneath here. This long tube, that's the unloading auger, and what that does is that swings out perpendicular to the combine so that the grain can be unloaded onto grain dollies or trucks. Here we're in the cab of the machine, and this is the operator seat, and this is the buddy seat for kids who like to ride, or my dad who wants to see what the crop is looking like. But we have our monitor, or basically the computer of the machine, that tells you yield, engine load, speed, all your combine settings. And this is your hydrostat right here. This is your control. Got all your buttons to control your header, to dump your grain. It does everything you need to do. You got it? Here, let me have it. Come on.
Where's my rock?
All right. Here you can see the combine in action. We cut around 2.5 to 3.5 miles an hour. See how the cutter bar is cutting the rice, the reel brings it in, and then it falls in the belt and works its way into the throat of the machine. Here you can see us dumping on the grain dolly. Typically we're out in the rice fields and dumping while moving or unloading on the go. It's just too muddy right now in these rice fields to do this.
door, then drive the combine. Then the header spins, and when it cuts, it goes down in the black. Then when the tractor comes, the dump soap, then it pours all over to here. Then dumps right in the tractor's grain bin, and then it goes right in here. Then it finds the grain bin, and then it pours all.
Alright, it's 24 hours later after the last video. It's gone down a little bit, probably 6 inches maybe. Hey kitty. But our bean field still is halfway underwater. Alright, day 2 I think, since the first video reporting the flood. Water's jumping about 4 inches a day. It's not going to be enough to save this field. We're going to lose the lower end of it for sure. But what's going on is with the water on the beans, and it's 91 degrees, high humidity, it really kind of just cooks the beans, it cooks the plant, and they're going to eventually die. Like that field, we have a lot of fields that look like that. We have several hundred acres that's just completely underwater. So we're going to lose, you know, it could be upwards of 1,000 acres. I sure hope not. But we know that the good Lord has a plan, and we're just here living in it. That's Kip the dog. Hey Kip. But he's been enjoying the water. He's been having a good time. Thanks for watching our video. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope we were able to give you some insight on how we grow rice. If you have any questions, please shoot us an email or anything like that.